I was leaning against the balcony railing of my downtown apartment, silk blouse brushing against my skin, the city lights below flickering like fireflies. My phone buzzed again, another text from my mother, filled with congratulations and subtle reminders of who I really owed this success to. I stared at it, chest tight, letting the words sink. At least she still hasn't admitted I earned it on my own. Tonight was my graduation celebration, but it had ended years ago. The memory of that day still haunted me. My father, voice sharp, saying, "You didn't deserve this, your brother did." His words, like knives wrapped in disappointment, had cut deeper than I could have imagined. The applause around me back then felt hollow, drowned out by the echo of his judgment. I took a deep breath, letting the cool autumn air fill my lungs, and felt a flicker of something stronger than hurt: pride. I had spent years turning that sting into fuel, building a life I hadn't dared dream of in my childhood bedroom. My mentor's advice, my grandmother's small gift of a leather-bound notebook, had been my compass, guiding me past their disbelief. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. My brother, Alex, was here, probably unaware of the life I'd carved in secret. For the first time in years, I would see the people who had doubted me. And for the first time, I'd have the chance to show them exactly who I had become. I was 16, sitting on the edge of my bed in our cramped family home, the walls still echoing with my father's words. "Samantha, you'll never amount to what Alex can do," he had said, shaking his head as if disappointment was a family heirloom. My stomach twisted into knots, and I felt that familiar lump in my throat. I wanted to cry, to scream, to disappear all at once. Instead, my hands trembled as I clutched the small notebook my grandmother had given me that morning. "Write your dreams, Sam," she had whispered, her gnarled fingers brushing my hair back. "No one can take them if you believe in them." Her eyes, sharp yet tender, had held a promise I couldn't ignore. That notebook became my secret companion, a place where my ambitions could breathe without judgment. The fight had been relentless. Every dinner was a reminder of my place. Every compliment I received brushed aside, always redirected to Alex. Teachers praised me, friends celebrated me, yet at home, my accomplishments were invisible. I remember the sting of hearing my father tell me, once again, that my scholarship to State University was undeserved. "Your brother would have done better," he had said, staring past me as though I were already insignificant. That night, I sat cross-legged on the floor, notebook open, pen hovering. I felt small, yes, but a spark ignited deep inside, a stubborn, quiet defiance. I wrote the first words of my plan, listing the things I would accomplish when no one was watching, the dreams they wouldn't take seriously until it was too late. I traced every sentence carefully, almost ceremoniously, as if I were signing a contract with myself. By dawn, the decision was made. I would leave, not just my room, but the weight of their judgment. I would chase opportunities beyond their grasp, beyond their expectations. The world outside my small town felt enormous and terrifying, yet also exhilarating. The notebook wasn't just paper and ink. It was a promise to myself, a compass for the life I was determined to claim. As I closed it, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control. I might have been powerless in their eyes, but in that quiet moment, I realized I was powerful enough to define my own success. And I would. Leaving home was nothing like I imagined. The first week at State University, I felt like a ghost drifting through lecture halls filled with confident, polished students. Every time I opened my notebook, I reminded myself that I was capable, that my dreams weren't just scribbles on paper. They were blueprints for the life I was determined to build. I met Mrs. Lillian Carter in my second semester, a professor who seemed to see through the walls I'd built. She noticed the way I stayed late after class, reworking my projects, always striving for perfection. One afternoon, she pulled me into her office, shelves lined with awards and photographs of her own triumphs. "Samantha," she said, "you have talent, but talent without courage is wasted.
Take risks. Fail.
And when you succeed, make sure it's on your terms." Her words echoed in me for months, guiding every decision, Every late night at the library, every hesitant step into internships that terrified me. The early days were brutal. I juggled 3 part-time jobs, projects for school, and endless applications for internships that barely paid enough for rent. Some nights, I would collapse onto the tiny cot in my studio apartment, exhausted, pens scattered around me, the notebook open beside me like a quiet friend. I questioned myself constantly. Was I really capable? Was I just chasing an illusion while Alex, my destined sibling, thrived effortlessly? But slowly, the pieces started to align. My first freelance project, a small graphic design campaign for a local boutique, paid barely enough to cover groceries, but it was mine. I remember the thrill of seeing my designs displayed in their window, thinking, I did this on my own. Then came the first big client, a regional marketing firm that valued creativity over pedigree. Everyone felt like a tiny rebellion against the narrative I'd been fed since childhood. By my mid-20s, I had launched my own consultancy, quietly thriving while my family assumed I was still finding my way. I kept my social media understated, sharing casual updates but never the real triumphs, the profitable contracts, the growing team, the office I rented downtown with sunlit windows and walls I painted myself. The notebook from my grandmother stayed tucked in my desk drawer, now filled with reminders of the courage and grit it took to get here. I learned to measure success in quiet victories. The first time I paid my rent without asking for help. The first time I traveled to a client meeting in a cab I could afford myself. The first time I realized my credit card wasn't maxed out with survival expenses. It was intoxicating, this feeling of building a life unseen, untouchable, and utterly my own. And yet, every now and then, a pang of longing struck me, the part of me that still wished my father could see, truly see, what I had become. But those moments were fleeting. I had grown stronger than longing. I had grown smarter, sharper, and unshakable. The stage was set for the moment I would finally step into the light they had denied me. The elevator dinged, and I straightened the blazer I had chosen for today. A deep navy, simple but elegant, the kind of piece that whispered confidence rather than shouted it. I could hear my brother's voice before I saw him, laughing like nothing had changed, completely unaware that the world they thought I lived in was a facade I'd long abandoned. I opened the door to the suite I had rented for this family visit. It wasn't grand by billionaire standards, but every detail screamed ownership. The walls were lined with abstract paintings I had commissioned, each one representing a milestone. My first client, my first profit, the first step toward real independence. A sleek desk sat in the corner, papers neatly stacked, my grandmother's leather-bound notebook placed ceremoniously on top. Sam? Alex's voice faltered the moment he stepped in. He stopped mid-laugh, eyes widening as he took in the space. I let the silence stretch. My father's footsteps echoed behind him. He paused at the threshold, scanning the room like a man who had walked into the wrong story. This isn't possible, he muttered, his voice betraying confusion and something like guilt. I smiled softly, the way you smile when someone finally realizes they underestimated you. It's real, I said, voice steady. Every bit of it. I led them to the desk, gesturing toward the sleek laptop open with client dashboards and profit statements displayed. This consultancy, I said, letting my words land, is entirely mine. These clients, this revenue, the projects that actually make a difference. Everything I've built is the result of years you refuse to acknowledge. My father's face went pale. My brother, usually so quick to mock or interrupt, had no words. For once, he couldn't deflect. I opened the drawer of the desk and retrieved my grandmother's notebook, now filled with notes, contracts, and sketches. I handed it to my father. Do you recognize this? This isn't just a notebook. It's a promise I made to myself the day you told me I didn't deserve success. And I kept it. He swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the pages. I never meant. His voice cracked, as if the weight of decades of doubt was finally pressing down on him. Alex finally spoke, voice low, almost respectful. Sam, I had no idea. I held his gaze. You didn't see me. You assumed I couldn't. But assumptions aren't facts. And neglect? That doesn't determine my worth. I do. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then, slowly, they began to understand, not just that I had succeeded, but that they had been spectators to a life I'd built without them. It wasn't revenge I felt, it was clarity. It was power. I looked around the room once more, taking in the space that represented years of sweat, late nights, and self-doubt turned into triumph. This isn't about proving I'm better than Alex, I said gently. It's about showing that I am enough, even when you didn't believe I was. The weight lifted slightly from my chest. I had faced them. I had revealed the truth. And for the first time in my life, I felt fully seen, not by their approval, but by my own reflection in the life I had fought to create. I let the silence stretch, letting them feel the weight of the life they had ignored. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm but firm. I've built this life on my own, and I'm willing to let you be a part of it, but only if things change. My father swallowed, still staring at the notebook. Change, he asked hesitantly.
Yes.
Change, I said. I won't let the patterns of the past dictate my future, or your access to it. You've both been given a second chance, but it comes with conditions. Alex flinched slightly, like he hadn't expected rules in a space he had assumed was familiar. I continued. First, respect is non-negotiable. I will not tolerate dismissal, belittling, or comparisons. Your words define you, and I will no longer allow them to diminish me or anyone else in this room. I turned to my father. Second, accountability. You need to recognize your past actions and take steps to change. It's not just about saying sorry, it's about actively proving that you can do better. Attend counseling, reflect on your biases, and don't expect me to shoulder the emotional labor for your growth. Alex, quieter now, looked down at his hands. And me? He asked softly. You, I said, have a chance to pursue something meaningful. Your passion, not just the expectations I was supposed to meet. If you commit to real effort, I'll support you. If not, I won't let old family dynamics drag me back into frustration and self-doubt. I saw the flicker of understanding in their eyes, the moment when the illusion of control they thought they had over me shattered. I wasn't asking for blind obedience, nor was I punishing them. I was reclaiming the narrative, blending compassion with strength. Finally, I let a small, genuine smile soften my tone. I care about both of you, but I care about myself too. And the woman I've become will not be compromised by old patterns. This is your opportunity to grow with me, not hold me back. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. No one can take your dreams if you believe in them. I realized now that believing in myself wasn't just about achieving success. It was about demanding that the people around me rise or step aside. My father's jaw tightened, Alex's shoulders straightened, and I felt the subtle but undeniable shift. The power had moved, but it wasn't just mine. It was mutual, contingent on respect, honesty, and the courage to change. And for the first time, I felt fully in control, not out of anger, but out of clarity and self-respect. I had transformed the past into a bridge for the future, and the terms were mine to set. Weeks passed after the confrontation, and I began to see subtle but meaningful changes. My father, once quick to criticize, started attending counseling sessions and even sent me a thoughtful email detailing his reflections. Alex, surprisingly, began pursuing his own projects, sketching designs late at night and sharing small achievements with genuine pride rather than expectation. I watched them grow, not into the people I wanted them to be, but into versions capable of respect and accountability. And I, too, was changing. I no longer measured my worth by their approval or my past hurts. I measured it by the life I had built, the challenges I had overcome, and the grace with which I navigated both success and forgiveness. One evening, I sat by the window in my office, sunlight streaming across my desk, and reached for the leather-bound notebook my grandmother had given me years ago. I traced the edges with my fingers, remembering her voice. No one can take your dreams if you believe in them. The notebook, once a symbol of secret ambition, now felt like a testament, a bridge connecting my past pain to the woman I had become. I realized something crucial. Success was more than accomplishments. It was the freedom to define boundaries, the courage to demand respect, and the humility to allow growth in those willing to meet you halfway. I had fought to be seen, to be heard, and to be valued. And in the process, I had discovered an even greater truth. Power doesn't come from others' approval. It comes from self-respect, clarity, and unwavering belief in your own worth. As I closed the notebook and looked out over the city lights, I felt a quiet satisfaction settle in my chest. The journey had been long, and the wounds of the past would never fully disappear, but they no longer controlled me. I was free, and in that freedom, I whispered to myself, as if narrating my own story for the world to hear. I raised myself. I built myself. And now I own myself, completely, unapologetically, and gracefully. A smile curved my lips. The city hummed below, alive and full of possibilities. And for the first time, I knew that no one, no judgment, no doubt, no expectation could ever take that from me.